Greetings, Anonymous Party members. In this video, I am outlining the primary goals of the Anonymous Party. For those of you watching me for the first time, my name is Nick Borden, and I am running for President of the United States. I have also started a new political party with the purpose of tearing down the existing corrupt two-party system. Both major parties are corrupt and acting far outside of the interests of the people. And because of the existing system that allows campaign contributions, big companies and the wealthy are essentially able to buy politicians and limit our choices to only whichever of the two or three candidates we hate the least. And so, the party that I have created, the Anonymous Party, will not accept campaign contributions. For more information, watch any of the other videos on my YouTube channel or on the website, www.anonymousparty.org. You can also like our Facebook page for updates on new video releases and other news at www.facebook.com/theanonymousparty. Now, to be a candidate in the Anonymous Party, you must first meet the requirements of any office you wish to serve in. Second, you must have worked at least 5 years total in either a military function or a non-government appointed position, either for a corporation, business, or other organization, or have been self-employed. At least 2 of those years must be consecutive for the same entity. Why? Work experience is important. Having work experience lets you know what you are regulating, protecting, or restricting. It also creates at least a handful of people who have worked alongside you that could then be consulted to discover your work ethic, your attitude, and your intelligence. Some people are smart in their home life, but either act dumb at work to get out of doing things, or are just not good with certain types of work for some reason. Acting dumb to get out of work speaks volumes about your work ethic, but not being good with certain types of work may or may not be tolerable in whatever position it is you wish to fill. Another recommendation, though, is that no one who has hacked with the Anonymous Collective attempt to run for an office. This is not so much because I think you are dangerous or undesirable in any way, which may at least be true in a handful of cases. I haven't really met any of you personally, so I'm not going to say one way or the other. But the reason behind this is because I'd rather that the government not decide to prosecute you just to take you out of the political picture. Another requirement is that prior to running for an office, you must reasonably expect to survive and work at least a couple of years after your elected office. In other words, if you're 90 years old and unsure you'd even make it 6 years in the office of a senator, don't run. Because even if you survive, it's doubtful you'll return to the workforce after serving those 6 years. What's the purpose of this rule? It isn't to silence the elderly, not by a long shot. In fact, the elderly is one of the places that I've come up with a lot of the best ideas that I've come up with. I talk to a lot of older people. They also have a lot of the best stories of their childhood. In fact, it's probably the biggest motivation for me doing this, is stories of older people describing the things that they were free to do when they were children or young adults. We don't have nearly the same freedoms today that they did when they were children, and it must be even more sad for them than it is for most of us who are just growing up in this age and are already used to it. But if you serve with the intention of retiring, though, or you don't expect to survive long after your term, you're far more likely to serve your own interests rather than the interests of the working man. You may want to start your own business after serving. You may want your old job back, or you may want a new job. All of these are fine, because at least at that point you would have to create or maintain a set or system of laws that make it fair for you to function in that system that you would be returning to. So, after serving, you'd be going back with the people that you came from. This ensures that you are of the people and for the people, and not just from the people, with the belief that after being elected you are permanently above the people. So, now that I've outlined who should be allowed to be a candidate, Let's outline some of the party's goals. This entire list is available on the party's website. However, more will be added to it as I make more videos and as I collect or have more ideas. A few goals I have left out intentionally because of the potential for confusion over the reasoning behind them. They will be added to the list as soon as the video that supports the objective is completed. That being said, let's start with the goals at the federal level. To save myself a considerable amount of time, though, I won't be adding subtitles to these objectives since, as I said, they're all available on the party website on the mission page. So, here goes. First objective, to reform the government of the United States of America by first teaching the people, and then by seizing the offices necessary to return the freedoms to the citizens of the nation by winning elections. 2. To return freedoms to the people of the United States of America by repealing laws that remove or sidestep those freedoms. Objective 3. To create and implement a constitutional amendment that would require all government expenses to be voted on separately and of their own merits. This is to eliminate pork barrel spending. Number 4. To create and implement a constitutional amendment that would limit the terms of senators to 2 terms and of congressmen to 3 terms each. 5. To remove our current tax system and replace it with a new, easy-to-follow, easy-to-monitor system that does not require citizens to file reports, keep records, or risk an audit from the IRS without an obvious intent to circumvent paying tax. Number 6. To define or outline what is permitted in regards to protest, specifically online protest, and implement it as either a law or as a constitutional amendment. Number 7. To remove all unnecessary regulations and restrictions on businesses, and to implement only those necessary to prevent businesses from taking advantage of people. Number 8. To greatly reduce the size and scope of the EPA by only allowing it to enforce regulations and restrictions that have been approved by Congress and by the President, and by requiring a warrant of seizure before being allowed to seize any property from any citizen for any reason, and requiring a court hearing for the owner of the property being seized to appeal that seizure. Number 9. To separate disability from the Social Security program so that the retirement plan can actually pay for itself without being crippled by the disability. Number 10. To combine all federal welfare programs along with the disability portion of Social Security into one system to allow for more efficiency, to prevent fraudulent use, and to provide for easier tracking of the welfare spending. Number 11. To amend the Constitution to allow for personal medical freedoms by preventing the government or the medical field from forcing citizens into treatments that they do not want for any reason, and by allowing citizens to decide what they feel is best for themselves in regards to medical treatments, and also to protect their right to make medical decisions for their children, so long as they are acting in what they honestly believe are the child's best interests. Number 12. To disassemble entirely the Department of Education and return full control and monitoring of schools and performance to the states and to the people where it belongs, as well as enacting a law or constitutional amendment that would protect the rights of parents and schools to teach their children as they see fit. This is the only type of federal law necessary in regards to education, is just one to protect private schools and homeschools from any government influence whatsoever, in their curriculum at least. Number 13. To remove all restrictions on what citizens can own, except where the storage of such materials or objects is deemed dangerous to neighboring citizens. An example would include nuclear materials. Those give off radiation or pose explosive hazards that could potentially harm others. Permits would be necessary for these instances, which would be dependent heavily on the storage or production facility to be used. Number 14. To implement a law or constitutional amendment that would eliminate all benefits for elected officials that extend more than 2 years beyond their elected term. This would remove any and all pensions, lifetime health care benefits, or any other benefit or exemption that would give any official any advantage at all or any distinction over any other citizen of the United States, with the exception of their title. For example, Mr. President or Congressman. That's all for the time being at the federal level. I'm sure I will add more later, but for now, let's just move on to the state level goals. Implementation will vary from state to state, but the basic goals will be the same. Some states will also likely have more work to do than others, and some will actually probably have at least one or two of these objectives completed already. In fact, some of them had a few of them completed before I even really had the ideas. But every state definitely needs at least work towards most of these objectives. So, first couple will probably sound fairly familiar. Number 1, to reform the government of each of the states by first teaching the people and then by seizing the offices necessary to return the freedoms to the citizens of those states by winning elections. Number 2, to return the freedoms to the people of each of the states by repealing state laws or community laws that remove or sidestep those freedoms. Number 3, to create or implement laws that would require all state and local government expenses to be voted on separately and of their own merits. A state-level version of the No Pork Barrel spending law. Number 4, to impose term limits on all state-level positions that involve creating or implementing regulations or policies. This should also extend to community, like city-level or county-level positions that involve the same things. These limits may vary from position to position, but for higher positions such as governors and mayors, should be limited to 2 terms or 10 years, whichever is greater. Other positional limits may vary, or may have clauses to prevent issues like 0 candidates or community approval ratings must be a certain level in order for an incumbent to run again. Example of which would be, say, a county clerk in a particular county that doesn't have a whole lot of people is the only person on a ticket, regardless of whether they've been in the position for 6 or 7 years or 6 or 7 terms. If they want another term and nobody else wants it, then obviously they're not doing such a bad job that somebody's angry about it and wants to take over. Number 5, to remove all unnecessary regulations and restrictions on businesses and to implement only those necessary to prevent businesses from taking advantage of people. Number 6, to remove all state-level income taxes, corporate taxes, and property taxes, and any other type of tax other than a sales tax. Essentially, this would be using the same basic tax system prescribed for the federal government, just at a state level. The only acceptable tax outside of this would be vehicle registration fees, or any other tax that fills the same basic formula as being completely voluntary. And this is completely voluntary because, well, a very large percentage of the population does own and operate a vehicle on a regular basis. It is not a federal law that everyone must own and operate a motor vehicle. So your owning a motor vehicle is voluntary, and your registering it is a condition upon driving it on the roadway. So it is still optional. So these registration fees go to pay for the road system that you are using those vehicles on. And so it is a very acceptable tax. Number 7, to reform the environmental laws in each state and to remove all laws that unnecessarily restrict private citizens' use of their land or anything on it. This includes protections for gardeners to be able to have gardens, and also for collecting rainwater, especially on the smaller scale. There are a few states, or at least communities, where rainwater collection from downspouts from your own gutters has been deemed illegal. That's ridiculous. Any other uses as well that do not have a significant negative impact on neighboring property should also be protected. Number 8, to combine all state welfare programs into one system to allow for more efficiency, prevent fraudulent use, and to provide for easier tracking of welfare spending. And when combined with the streamlined federal system, will make cross-checking the qualifications for benefits simpler. It'll make it a lot easier to tell if the only other system that you have to check to make sure somebody's not getting 18 different types of subsidies, if it's just one other system that you have to consult with, then those two systems, if they share information back and forth between state and federal level, there's not a whole lot of confusion to be had, so long as those systems are working correctly, which will need work. Number 9. To deregulate and diversify the school system by allowing parents the choice of what school to send their children to. This would allow parents to send their children to any school in the state that they live in, but in some cases would shift the cost or responsibility of transporting that student to the parents, at least if that school does not provide a bus service in their area. So, these are the basics of the goals for now. Some of these may be extremely apparent as to why they should be our goals, and some may not. And it may be hard for some people, given the history of promises made by politicians in our country, but I ask that you, at least for now, please trust me in my claim that all of my ideas really fit together to form this harmonious balance of freedoms, and are likely the only way to undo the bureaucracy that the government has created without booting millions of people to the curb simultaneously, and without denying millions of welfare recipients the money they've come to rely on, without giving them a lengthy and fair opportunity to pull themselves out of poverty by first removing the barriers that the current system has placed to actually keep them earning next to nothing. There are a ton of systems in our government that people are relying on for their incomes or well-being, and while many of them are wastes of federal money, or state or local money, you can't just yank that rug out from underneath everybody all at once. If we suddenly one day said, that's it, this is how much we're spending, everybody else has got to go, well, you're putting millions and millions of people out of work, and millions of people who are relying on welfare suddenly don't have it. That's going to hurt a lot. And that's going to devastate the economy, which is also going to devastate those who aren't even in that situation already. So it's a very foolish move to just think that you can yank that out all at once. So for anyone who's thinking that's my plan, no. I've actually thought out exit strategies for these things, and the only unfortunate thing is in a few cases, a couple of things have to be reformed at the same time in order for the progress to really be significant. Most of them can have at least a small reform in and of themselves and see benefits, but the big benefit, the huge savings, doesn't really come until at least 2 or 3 of them are put together and their effects multiply. I may not have the answer to everything, but those that I do have work together to solve multiple problems each, and typically at the root of the problems, not just on the surface. As I get further into this series of videos, however, I'm sure that I'll get even more questions, especially on a few of the topics. But if you do have questions, please, watch as many of the videos as you can manage, and if you haven't heard an answer in one of these videos, by all means, go to the party website and sign up for the forums and ask your question there. And either I or someone else, hopefully someone who understands it completely, will answer your question. Now, I might not answer the question right there on the forum, especially if I'm working on the video that has the answer to that question in it. I might just post a link to that video once I actually get it completed. But if you still have a question after that, then I'll answer it on the forums. But I do hope that however, you take the time to understand the ideas that I'm explaining, and that you offer feedback that is based on an honest understanding of those answers. I want everyone to understand what I'm talking about, even if they don't agree with me. What's the point of having an opinion, however, if it's based on false information? Or worse, a lack of information. Don't cheat yourself out of a valid opinion by basing it off of emotion, or even worse, off of lies. Your opinions matter. Don't waste them, because you matter. We all matter, because we are the people. We are anonymous. We are a legion, We do not forgive, we do not forget. Expect us.